hear me. What is happening? Good morning. Good morning. It's Tuesday trading. Hope you guys can hear me. Do me a favor and drop a comment. I was having a little bit of technical difficulties, getting a loop going on in the sound. I don't know if you guys caught that, but do me a favor and just comment below. Let me know you can hear me solid. We have an excellent show lined up for you today. This is episode 17. 17 of these things we got now. We got Emily Trevino going to come on a little later. But first, we got a little bit of news, man. I was thumbing through. Let me show y'all some of this stuff real quick. Check this out. I don't know whose bus that is, but that is the Medicare bus, MedicareBus.com. And this was in the New York Times that I picked up this morning. It says, U.S. health officials seek new curbs on private Medicare Advantage plans. Well, what are they talking about here? Well, if you cruise down a little bit, it says that federal health officials are now proposing an extensive set of tougher rules governing private Medicare Advantage health plans in response to wide-scale complaints that, well, too many patients' medical claims have been wrongly denied and that marketing of the plans are deceptive. So we already know that CMS cracked down earlier this year on defining agents as TPMOs or third-party marketing organizations and have added some new regulations for us, new rules, right? We got disclaimers that we got to say, we got new things we got to do when we advertise. We have to record all of our calls, all of that good stuff. Well, they got more stuff coming for us, it sounds like. So they're basically going to crack down harder on ads. They are going to crack down harder on use of Medicare colors and Medicare logos. So for example, it looks like, and let me find it in here somewhere. I think I passed it up, but it did state that they do not want us here pretty soon. They're going to tell us, boom, boom, here we go, that they want us to cease using the Medicare logo. So proposed regulation would ban the plans from using the Medicare logo and require that the company behind the ad be identified. So lots of interesting stuff coming. So, I mean, we already know that we've got some pretty crazy things that we have to do as Medicare agents out there, but get ready because it sounds like probably sometime around maybe 2024. I'm guessing, unless they get this stuff pushed through super fast, but I would bet sometime next year we're going to see new regulations that we got to do for 2024. So get excited. Also, here's another big thing. Congress saves big healthcare decisions for last. So you may have remembered last week I had mentioned that there's a new healthcare package they are working on pushing through at the end of this year. One of the things that we're expecting to be in that healthcare package is, contrary to what that last article was about, there's a couple of Republican senators that are trying to reverse all of those TPMO recording requirements on us. So that's one of the items that's going in this package. But more importantly, you'll see right here, it says that doctor cuts, the package is actually going to stave off 2.5% of the scheduled 4.5% cut to the Medicare physician fee schedule in 2023, as well as a 1.25 percentage points of cuts that are projected for 2024. So you may remember, and I said it last week, right, that they are fighting all of these cuts to Medicare physician reimbursements that have been sequestered ever since 2020. These cuts were supposed to go into effect in 2020, but when COVID happened, the pandemic came along, they said, hey, wait a second, let's hold off on these doctor and physician cuts and reimbursements till we get through this pandemic. Well, the pandemic's over, right? They officially made that announcement, a few weeks ago that I think by April 1st will be the exact cutoff date of what they would call the pandemic or the federal emergency, I should say. So they're going to put in these cuts, but thankfully this new healthcare package, assuming it gets approved, is not going to give them the full 4.5% cut, but it's only going to give them about a 2% cut. So doctor cuts are still coming, but not as bad as it was. Also in this package, a reminder basically that Medicaid coverage is going to be, that expansion is going to be coming off. So people could get bumped from Medicaid if they don't meet eligibility requirements starting April 1st. So, but that process is going to occur over a 1-year period. So like it says in this article, there's not going to be a cliff where all of a sudden everybody loses Medicaid. But rest assured that starting April 1st next year, people are going to start losing their Medicaid qualification. So if those are people that are both Medicare, Medicaid covered, they're dual eligible, they're on both, then you're going to get an SEP where you can move them into another plan of some sort when they lose their Medicaid coverage. I am not an ACA expert, but that is going to obviously ruin some people's subsidy options if they're losing Medicaid opportunities. So I'm not exactly sure how that plays out. Emily might have some insight for us on that for those people that are losing Medicaid in that space as well. And then finally, one more little piece here that I thought was interesting, straight from CNBC. Up to 254,000 Medicare beneficiaries are going to get new ID cards thanks to a data breach at a subcontractor. Now, I don't know who that subcontractor is, and they do not mention them in here, but apparently a subcontractor for Medicare has been hacked with ransomware, and there was roughly 254,000 Medicare beneficiaries whose personal information may have been compromised in an online ransomware attack at a government subcontractor. So about 254,000 people are going to get letters sent to them, right? Beneficiaries that were impacted by the potential data breach says that letters will be sent to them from Medicare and Medicaid services from CMS to explain that they will be receiving a new replacement card with a new identification number in the next few weeks. So if you, as an agent, have Medicare beneficiaries who are going to, or maybe they're one of those 254,000 people, and they receive a letter, be aware, right? Number one, the letter has to come from CMS. It's going to come from Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. If anything like that's coming from somewhere else, it's probably an ad or scam. But if they're getting a letter from CMS that says, hey, you are going to receive a new card with a new number, it's not garbage. This is real. And there's, again, 254,000 people that were possibly affected by this, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that much. That's 0.4% of Medicare's almost 65 million people that are on it. So, but, food for thought. So with that said, I want to get this show moving along. We've got an outstanding guest coming on. I met Emily. I met her virtually, obviously, but then I met her for the very first time at the Medicare Con event back in Memphis, Tennessee at the end of 2020, if I remember correctly. Maybe it was 2021. Things move so fast, I can't even remember anymore. But I remember she grabbed me, saw me, she said, hey, you, Tony Merwin, come here, talk to me for a second. And I got to know Emily for a bit, her and her partner, Kim On. I call them the Houston Hustlers. They're down in Houston, Texas. They are absolute beasts in both the Medicare and the ACA market. But outside of that, Emily is extremely knowledgeable in understanding how to set up your business for legacy planning, right? For succession planning. We're not just in this business. I mean, some of us are, but some of us aren't, right? A lot of us want to be in this business to build something long-term. If you talk to my partner, Joe Campert, he'll tell you his goal is to build a 100-year agency, right? So he is building legacy. He is building something that when he exits the business will live on beyond him. And that's the topic of the show today. Don't let your business die when you do. So without further ado, let's get Emily up here. Let's chat with her a little bit, see what is happening. What is going on? How are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm about to freeze my butt off here in Houston, Texas this week. Don't make fun of me if you're from up north. It's colder down here in a weird kind of way.
Understood. It's a little chilly in Austin. It's supposed to get colder. It is supposed to get a lot colder. Is it not? I think it's supposed to get to like 25 degrees on Thursday.
On Thursday, but I think it's supposed to get down to like less than that. I mean,
less than
my parents live in Livingston. It's supposed to be like 8 degrees or something. And us Texans, we don't have all that fancy snow tire stuff down here.
No, we certainly don't. We don't have a group of trucks that wake up in the morning and go sand and salt all the streets for us.
No.
That is definitely not our thing. So how was your AEP and your ACA enrollment period been? You guys killing it out there?
It has been very busy. We had a lot of market disruptions this year. So, we always have a market disruption. So now that's just going to be the expectation. I thought this year would be our first year on the ACA side that we wouldn't have a market disruption, that we would just kind of like keep people in the same plan, but it wasn't like that. And it's never been like that here in Houston, to be honest. So a lot of big changes here, but we survived it. We got everybody re-enrolled, that responded. And then we brought in some new clients as well. And that's kind of we had a lot of good growing pains. So things we had to learn. throughout the season. But AEP was good to us as well. I mean, we sell year round, so we're not like so diehard stressed about AEP like some people are. And there's nothing wrong with it if you are. If that's where you make your business is in that last quarter, that's great. We just do it all year. So it was good for us. But I did do something new this year that I think every agent should do. And I kept a journal. Not like, oh, this is how I feel, not that kind of journal, a business journal of like issues that we had that we kind of band-aided. And then we're reevaluating them now during the off season, kind of say, hey, was that band-aid? Like, how do we prevent that in the future? But also, is that a good solution? And just kind of being more thoughtful about the processes that we have. So that was something I implemented. I took it from, I used to have a sales journal when I first started sales. My mentor was like, hey, keep a sales journal so that you can write down the things you're uncomfortable with so that you can practice it later, because you're just not going to remember, like when you get through the thick of it, it was like a blur. And if you look at what you did on October 15th, you have no idea outside of what's in your calendar, So I think that kind of journaling is productive for me, but
okay.
Teach their
Right
own.
on. Understood. Now, you said something earlier. You said you had a bunch of market disruptions, and we might have a few people in here that don't really understand what you mean there. Would you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, and it's kind of an extension on what you talked about, what you started the show with, but we did have market disruptions on the ACA side. We had two, not just one, but two carriers who either voluntarily left or were forced to leave the market under whatever circumstances. And they had a huge market share. These were regional carriers that came in and offered, the most competitive pricing and pretty great benefits last year and the year before. And they ended up leaving Texas altogether. And so that left a huge need. And there's still a lot of people that don't even realize that these people left, and they think that they're going to continue on their new healthcare coverage. So there's a huge opportunity in Texas. I mean, of course, I'd like to keep it all for myself, but we cannot do that here. We need people to help Texans, and other states are impacted too. It's not just Texas, but Bright Health left, and then Friday Health left as well. So Texas and I believe Tennessee for Friday. Bright Health left all the markets. So
right.
A huge opportunity in the ACA space. I know you mentioned a little bit about Medicaid earlier. And when people lose Medicaid, the other option is they'll qualify for a special enrollment period to join an ACA plan. So because they lost their Medicaid coverage, and they're going to be able to do so. So that's going to create a huge opportunity for agents who are in the ACA space. If they're not in the space yet, they better hurry up and get into it. And it's not as complicated as Medicare, but it is as valuable as Medicare. We have families and individuals out there who need health coverage, and it's our job to make sure we get it for them.
I like that you look at it as an opportunity and not a problem, right? Like, oh, goodness, this is a problem for my business. Like, no, this is an opportunity for my business. So when you hear of a market disruption like that, and I assume you probably had clients enrolled in Friday, I assume you had a bunch of clients probably enrolled in Bright, right? So when you hear of this, like how do you attack it? How do you make sure it's not a problem for you and then it's an opportunity for you instead?
I'm real factual based. I'm unemotional. I mean, it's a lot like on the emotional side, you're like, oh my God, this could be a lot of work. There's so much to do. How could they do this? And it's like, I don't have the energy to waste on that. And we are business owners, guys. Like, we're not just product writers. We're business owners, and we have to treat this like a business. And a disruption is an opportunity because there are people who will leave the business. There are people who left under 65 insurance because of ACA. And we stayed in it, and we did incredible. We were one of the few who did. And now there's a ton of agents coming in, and that's a great opportunity for them. And there's still millions of people without insurance. So, some people get very territorial of their clients and stuff, but it's like, I mean, come on, there's millions of people still without insurance. So they need to, get with it. So I like to focus on the facts and, okay, what do we do with those facts and how do we move forward? You're talking about the Medicare regulations that are going to come down. Some of those things have been talked about for years. And I think with the more and more complaints, those are coming down. Those are opportunities. So for me as a business owner, if I always stayed away from red, white, and blue. I always stayed away from names with Medicare in it, just forethought, but if you are impacted by that, you can either complain about it and waste the time, or you can just pivot and move forward. You just got to be real factual about it. It's really unemotional. Business is unemotional.
Business is unemotional.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody should put that on a t-shirt.
I know. I should trademark
Business
it
is unemotional.
like everybody else.
That's right.
Trademark wars. Just kidding.
I like it. I like it. Well, I love the fact that you pointed out, like you hit the nail on the head. You said most agents don't, or you said it should be approached like a business. And I think
Yes.
we would both agree that there's a huge percentage of agents out there that do not approach insurance like a business. They're like, oh, cool, I'm self-employed. I get to work for myself. I get to do what I want. I can play golf on Fridays. I can go make some money.
Yeah.
But
And
then
that's
there's the agents
fine.
like, no, I want to build a business.
But here's the thing, it's okay, whatever it is, but you can't be a victim of the circumstance. You know what I mean? If you're cool working 2 hours a day, and I have agents that do that, and it's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Sometimes it's somebody's retirement, like something fun to do, keep them busy, keep their mind right. Sometimes you have agents where I started this business as a single mom, so I had specific hours I had to work. It's fine wherever realm you're in, but you need to understand that this is a business and it's always a business. And that's what we're going to go into our topic today is how to protect that business, because it's not just you meeting with a client. I mean, Grace is meeting with clients every day, right? And she's helping them solve their problems, but I'm pretty sure she'd be really upset if something were to happen to her, clients weren't taken care of. She owns a business. You're a business person. You own a business first. You're an entrepreneur first. You're an insurance agent second. And that's how you should look at it. It may not feel like that when you have no clients, but that's part of being a business owner.
Love it. Love it, man. This is awesome. Guys, get ready because Emily's about to take the stage and teach you guys what it means to think about your succession planning, right? If you're here to build a legacy, if you're like my partner, Joe Camper, and you want to build a 100-year agency, you want to build something that's there when you're gone, get ready because Emily's about to drop some knowledge on y'all. Emily, with that said, darling, the stage is yours.
All right, awesome. Well, the topic I want to talk about today is not letting your business die when you die. And the thing is we're insurance agents, and I know a ton of us sell life. Even if you're on the PNC side, doesn't matter if you're on the health side, you're cross-selling life insurance across the board. The deal is this, that we are uncomfortable with talking about it with ourselves, and yet we have these strong conversations with our clients. And so one of the biggest things that I'm seeing, and this happened to us internally, and this is why it's so near and dear to my heart that I want to get this message out. I talked about it briefly at Medicare Con this year. And it's just something that I really want agents to take very serious. So make sure you just tune in today because it's really important. I'm going to start with a story because I think that's more impactful, but we had an agent who lost her life and her book of business had to be transitioned to somebody or her business dies with her. And that's facts. And people are like, Emily, that's insensitive. It's facts. That is exactly what happens if you do not have a plan. Your business becomes a house account. Your clients have no agent to call to help them with their problems. Your clients have no agent, no direction. They rely on the carrier. They now are left with nobody. And then your business is left as a house account. 92% of agents' book of business become house accounts. If you let that sink in, that means all the grit, the tears, the sweat, everything that you built into your business becomes a house account. And your clients aren't taken care of. Your family's not taken care of. Even if you don't have a family, maybe you're not married. Maybe you don't have kids. Maybe they don't want to inherit it. And we'll talk about, what you can do with that. But at the end of the day, it becomes a house account. You spent all this money marketing, getting in front of these clients, all this time educating the public, educating people on their options. 92% become house accounts because you didn't think to plan or we didn't talk about it. Nobody talks about this. The only reason why I found out about this was because we had somebody who passed away and her family immediately contacted us. And we're like, we're going to find out what to do. And we did. And we helped them. We helped save her business in a matter of like 60 days. And I'm going to talk about how timelines are important too. But then we took that opportunity to educate all of our agents. We told every last one of them, here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to have, yada, yada, yada. Well, a year ago, we lost another agent. due to an illness. And unfortunately, he didn't take our advice. And we had repeatedly told him, please do this, please do this, please do this. They did not do it. And we somehow, by the grace of God, were able to get this book of business transferred to his spouse. She was not licensed. She had no idea about this business. This is a very complicated business. This was on the Medicare side, but the PNC side, the life side, all this stuff is very complicated. Like, you cannot take this business and your spouse take over, or your sibling take over, or your child take over today and be able to plug in where it would take them forever to figure it out. And that is why 92% of people just give up, honestly. And also, one thing you've been talking to my external uplines, I call them external partners, my uplines, FMOs, IMOs, NMOs, and something all of you should too, is having them advocate a little bit harder for this, giving us a little bit more time to transition books of businesses in the event of a death, having more of a security, like being more transparent so that 92% of agents' book of business does not become a house account. That's the thing that really sticks hard to us, is that you put all this work, and it's at a disservice to your clients too, even if you don't have a family. But whether you've written 1 app, 0 apps, or 1 million apps, you need to have a plan. Okay. So we're going on to the more positive side of it, right? So you need to have an exit strategy no matter what you look into. So you're building this business, you're getting into the business. If you're brand new, a lot of times you're like, I just need to get apps so I can pay my bills, right? So you're just doing everything you can to just pay your bills. But at some point you have free time to think about, what am I going to do with this business? Are my kids going to inherit it? Which, if you saw the percentages of how many people really want to inherit your business, you'd be shocked. It's a small amount. So don't put your eggs in that basket. But your kids, maybe your kids want to inherit it. Maybe you want to leave it to another family member. Maybe you want to sell the business. Maybe it's your retirement plan. Things like that. There's so many different options. And I'm sure I'll be back to talk about those exit strategies somewhere on another time, Tony. It would be a good time to do that. But you need to have an exit strategy in mind. And one of those definitely needs to be your succession. Now, building a legacy, you need an estate planner. That I'm not here to talk about. And I'm not giving you any legal advice. That's my disclaimer to protect my business. I don't do that. I'm an insurance agency just like you guys. But the biggest thing is you need to have a succession plan. And what do I mean? So I'm going to talk a little bit on the health space. So if you're a PNC, you need to go do your own research because I don't know. But on the health space, for example, if you're with United Healthcare, if you were to die today, you have 6 months to transition in your book of business or it becomes a house account. If you're with Amerigroup, you have 3 months to transfer your book of business or it becomes a house account. So the first question you need to ask yourself is, how do I transfer this book of business to my family member or to a trusted associate, things like that? What are my options? Somebody has to be licensed. Somebody has to have a license to take over your book of business, first and foremost. Second of all, you need to have a will that says this said person inherits my book of business. It needs to be clear as day. No confusion. Okay. The other thing too, and probably the most important thing, and you should already have this done, and if you've not written an app yet, please do this as soon as possible. You should have an LLC. You should have an LLC and act as an agency. Have your commissions assigned to your agency. There's a whole bunch of tax incentives to do that. So you can reinvest back in your business. But that's a whole nother conversation. But get an LLC, have somebody else who's licensed that can take over you as the principal. And make sure that you have something in your will that says that this person is going to inherit your business. Now, if you don't do any of that, it's a lot to do in 3 months. So if you pass away while your family's sitting here grieving your passing, they now have to get an insurance license. And they now have to start transitioning your book of business. And hopefully your FMO or your NMO or your IMO knows what the heck to do. Because a lot of them don't, because they never had to do it. So that should be, when we get off this call today, you need to email your external partners and you need to ask them, what do I do if I die? Like, how do you help me or help my family? What are their plans for you? That is a question that you should ask them. And that's an honest to God, that's a great question to ask. any partner you're affiliated with, whether it's an external upline or an external downline. If you have downline agents and you hear this speech, it is now your responsibility to go and educate them. These are the things they need to do. You need to have an LLC. You need to have somebody that's licensed that you can make as a principal. Okay. And you need to have it in your will. Those are the 3 things. Okay. The next thing too is, as complicated as this business is, PNC, life, health, doesn't matter. Insurance is highly regulated. It's all kinds of systems, processes, portals, quoting tools, CRMs, emails, HIPAA compliance, all this stuff, right? As important as all that is, there's no way that you're going to take your spouse and plug them into this business overnight when you pass away and they're trying to grieve. They're not going to know how to get into your email. They're not going to have your facial recognition unless they go to the funeral and put it on your face. They're not going to have that, right? They're not going to have access to any of that information. So it is your responsibility to create what I call like a survival guide. Literally list every carrier portal, every username, every password. That includes, you need to have a contacts list. So your contacts list should include your IMO, maybe a trusted source that can help guide them through this process. It needs to include your lawyer's number, if you have one, your banker's number, if you have one, your partnership paperwork, all that stuff, everything that is related to your business needs to be in a drive somewhere that you've shared with them. Print it out. I don't like printing. I don't like paper because it burns and floods and water. I mean, literally, water can damage your entire succession plan. So, like, keep it somewhere electronic. Make sure they have access to where they have somebody they can contact to help guide them through this mess, right? That is extremely critical. So, not only do you have to have the LLC, you need to have a principal that's licensed. You need to have it in your will, but you need to have a survival guide of how to run your business. Now, to be completely honest, you should have all that stuff anyways. Otherwise, you're not organized. So if you're like, oh, I don't know where that is. Well, you better get organized. Spend the next 2 weeks, instead of chilling on vacation because you're tired, spend the next 2 weeks organizing your business so that you can protect your family. And I know I seem kind of aggressive about it, but it's because I've seen tears from family members who are literally on the brink of losing their entire family income because this was not set up correctly. So I'm very passionate about it. I want people to make sure that they protect their business and that they're not going to let it die when they die. It's extremely important. And I know a lot of agents like, yeah, I really need to do that. I really need to do that. Yeah, you say that, and then you have a pandemic that takes your life. We've had that happen too. That you didn't plan for that. Nobody plans for their death, but you can plan for your business. You can plan for your succession. Now, I do want to give some options too, because I know people are like, there's no way my husband's going to get licensed. There's no way my spouse is going to get licensed. Or maybe you don't have one. Maybe you have a brother, a sister, an uncle, an aunt. The other thing too is you can talk to your upline partner, your external upline partners, and see what their options are. Do they have an option for you? I know that there's been arrangements made. I know I talked to somebody previously. There's arrangements made that they will purchase the book of business, and it's written in the will. The pricing, everything is already there. The purchase agreement is already there. So in the event of the death, that's what would trigger the sale. That is an option. There's people that have a trusted friend that is in the business as well. I mean, Tony, I met Tony. I know Joe Camper. I know, all Justin Brock. I know all these great, amazing people in the business. If you are really good friends with somebody and they hold a license, if you absolutely trust, you can do an agreement. Always do an agreement, guys. Always do an agreement. I don't care how much you trust somebody. Always do an agreement, but maybe they can be the principal and spare your family having to do that. That is another great option as well. So the most important takeaway from this, though, is you need to get organized, get your stuff together, and make sure that you enter 2023 as a business, that you make sure that you enter 2023 protecting your business, and make sure you're protecting your clients, make sure you're protecting your family, because no one is going to be as good as you. No one can replace you. But what they can do is you can have a plan, and you owe it to your family and your clients to do that. So just to recap, because I'm going to keep doing this, I do this as a trainer too. Get your LLC, have someone ready on the back end that's licensed, put it in a will, because the carriers are going to ask for it. All right. Then create a survival guide of, and by the way, some of y'all could use a survival guide because y'all don't know your username and passwords. You save it on your Chrome thing, and then you're like somewhere else, like, well, I don't know my password. I don't have my laptop. So some of y'all could use a survival guide anyways. I'm not saying that offensively. It's just the truth. So make sure you have your survival guide. Include your portals, contacts, key contacts. Let them know, if you have an external, or an IMO, NMO, any of that, let them know who you are going to plan on having take over. Let other people know your plan, so that it's not catching them by surprise as well. So I'd make sure you have all your agreements, everything, so that it's an easy transition for your book of business is the most important part.
Good stuff. Agreed. Yeah. Joe has a beautiful question for you here.
Sure.
What are some of the systems, processes, or people that you've used to organize and set up your business?
You really need a good lawyer to handle a lot of your just general business agreements. I'm really big on business agreements. We bought a book of business and kind of like use a template business agreement, but looking back on it, I'm like, well, there's a whole lot of other things I would have put in there. So always having a lawyer. You never know when you're going to have a really great partnership. You never know when you're going to start a business with somebody or merge a business with somebody. So you just always want to have a good lawyer. You don't want to have to find a lawyer when you need it. You just kind of want to have one in your back pocket. It doesn't cost you anything to know of somebody that you want to work with. So I definitely think you need to have a lawyer. I think you need to have an incredibly good accountant, like a CPA who does your taxes. It needs to be somebody who is an entrepreneur or experienced in your field. The last thing I want to do is use somebody that doesn't understand like certain tax deductions, things like that. A great banker will, and this is like a whole nother topic. I did this for Club Win, Rebecca's group for women in insurance niches. Mm-hmm. We talked about leveraging cash, other people's money. So having a great banker can help you get lines of credit. They can help you get certain credit loans. They even have, some of the banks now have SBA loan specialists, so they can work through that. So having a really great banker. Let's see. Having really good external partners like IMOs, NMOs, your direct uplines. We need to put them to work, guys. I'm telling you, like, I'm really big on this. The fact that none of them talk about that, or I won't say none as a generalization, but I ain't ever heard anybody talk about it. So having a really good upline too is really important. So I think those are the foundations. As far as systems, I would make sure that you have a really good, like, we're G Suite people, but then also your CRMs, I think are pretty important as well. So
makes sense. Joe says, furthers up, he says there was the name of a group that you've used for succession planning, that you talked about them in a previous event. He can't remember and he's curious.
They're called Anderson Advisors. They're based out of Nevada. They actually look at you as a whole total package as an entrepreneur. They don't care what business you're in. They don't look at a doctor as a doctor. They don't look at an attorney as an attorney, or an insurance agent as an insurance agent. They look at it as a business, and they teach you about entity structures, things to consider, how to protect your business is one component of it. How to protect you as an individual is another component of it. And the third component is what entity structures you need to utilize the most to leverage the tax code in your favor. Now, I'm not saying don't pay your taxes. I'm just saying pay your fair share and then reinvest the rest back into your business or businesses. And that's where really serial entrepreneurs thrive, because they're able to create these different things. Like Emily Trevino, she doesn't own anything.
Right.
Now, Anderson Advisors are really good. You can let them know Emily Trevino sent you.
Right on. You had mentioned an attorney. Is there a specific type of attorney that you think is the right attorney?
If you're going to do business agreements, you definitely want to have a really good a general business attorney. Um, like I'm not going to use a family law attorney to look at my business agreement. I want people who are in that niche. So general business is good unless you start getting into things a little bit more complicated. They start niching down even within then. But I think a general business, just to get started, like you could use Anderson Advisors to set up your LLCs, right? I don't need a business attorney to set up an LLC. I need a business attorney to look at my agreements, what agreements I may have with my business partner, which by the way, if you ever do business partnerships, you should have your own attorneys as well, right? Because you need to have somebody who's looking out for your best interests. And a general business attorney will look out for the business's best interest, right? So things like that. So I do think you should have a really good attorney.
Makes sense.
General
Makes
business
sense.
attorney. Yeah.
Guys, if you got any more questions, man, now's your opportunity. Drop any more questions in there.
I try to keep it simple. So
yeah, no. This is fantastic. One of the things that I love that you mentioned is a survival guide, and I love the fact that you brought it out. Like some of y'all, you need a survival guide now just to run your business,
so you can survive.
Right. So you can actually survive. This is
we give it to every one of our agents, and I literally the spreadsheet that I use.
Yeah.
And we give it to our agents to say, look, because here's the thing. The last thing I want to do is if you call me and you need me help with something or you're coming to our office and need help and you don't know your username and password, then I can't help you. And it's like wasting everybody's time, So I think it's really important just to have it so you can survive in your business, but also other people can work as a team in your business too. It's easy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You think about I'm looking, I have a master login sheet. Right. And it has to have 2 tabs on it. It has to have 1 tab for all my corporate logins.
Yep.
Right. And then it has 1 tab for me as the independent agent, all my logins.
Yeah.
Right. So it's got,
the
portal. No, I don't share it. Not currently. I mean.
Well, the other thing too is you have to be careful because some things are not meant to be shared, right? Because of PHI and things like that. So on the health side of the business, you do have to be very, very, very careful. In fact, you can't just send that to your spouse because that's against HIPAA guidelines, PHI guidelines. And I'm sure somebody's listening is like, Emily, you can't do that, so you just
what are you saying? Like just all of a sudden send a non-licensed person my login to my CRM that has all my private data in there, their Medicare numbers and all those things?
No, you can't do that, which is also why it's important to start thinking about this stuff, because if you wait till the last minute, you have those kind of non-compliant things happening because people are just in survival mode. But if you have a plan, then you're following all the rules, you're following all the guidelines, because what you can do is you can have, because you're an agency, then you also have that licensed person in your partnership agreement as either a board member or a managing partner or something like that. So when you start thinking ahead like that and they're licensed, they can actually work in your business and then they can have access to that information.
Makes sense.
So you got to be legal about it too,
Yeah. I love this topic for a couple of reasons. And unfortunately, it all involves the unfortunate situation of someone passing. In the last 2 years, I've lost 2 agents in my downline, both of which they're both taken early. Neither one of them expected to go that early, right? And they didn't have anything put in place, right? Thankfully, one of them had a daughter that was able to pick it up and get things going real quick and get some things moved over. The other one, he unfortunately, I think his grandson was trying to pick up some of the pieces, but he couldn't get it done. And then one quick tip on survival guides. My dad, before he passed, rest in peace, was smart enough to have a survival guide. He had everything laid out, right? I remember he showed it to my sister. He's like, hey, look, he's like, this is the site. This is the folder on my laptop. Right? Here's all my banking information. Here's all my websites. Here's all my passwords. Here's everything you need. She's like, perfect. I got it. But she failed to get one thing, the password to that laptop.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, not good. So we ended up having to find a hacker to help us get into that laptop and get that information back. So remember that little detail.
Where do you find said hackers? I don't know how you find those.
We started with the company that he worked for because it was technically a company laptop.
Okay.
and then they couldn't find it, and then we had to go find it somewhere else. So my understanding is that we paid a hacker somewhere. My brother-in-law knew some computer guy and was able to get it all done. But yeah, don't forget that password. The password to the survival guide. That's an important one to have too.
Yeah.
Make sure that
Yeah,
one's
because a lot of times
shared with the right
people
person.
put that password protection on their Excel spreadsheets or their Google
Right.
spreadsheets. You can do that. So just make sure that you have that. I prefer
Right.
Google, to be honest, because you can put it on a shared drive.
Yep.
And you can password protect that. So you can be like, well, and you just use an everyday password that you would use. Like, don't make it some weird like ZY7032, one of those weird automated ones. Like, make it something that somebody would know, that's close to you that you
Yeah.
would.
Password phrases are always good.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
like password phrases, and I like Google as well. I use Google Docs and Google Sheets for a lot of those items. That way, I can easily share them with Grace or someone that needs to know that I want them to have access to it.
Yeah. I mean, and there's people that are Microsoft people, so they have a OneDrive. It's fine as long as the other user has it too, you
Yeah.
know. So, but
Awesome.
yeah, I think it's really important. And I will say this, I think one of the biggest things people need to do today is you need to email your external partners and say, hey, what's the plan? Like, what does my family do if I die today? And if they don't have an answer for you and they don't get one before January 1st, you need to do some real thinking,
Makes
because
sense.
we're good partners to them, and they need to be great partners for us, and they need to be here for us. And there are some that do know what to do. So, they got to take
Excellent.
care of us like partners.
Yes, they do. Well, thank you, Emily, so much for coming on today. This has been a fantastic topic. A lot of people loved it. We got a lot of great comments, a lot of good engagement. Thank you all for tuning in. What's next on Emily Trevino's horizon?
We're still focusing on growing our business here locally. You'll start seeing a lot more of me on social media as well, because I am really passionate about this topic, but there's other business topics that people don't think about and don't know, things like how to leverage other people's money, stuff like that, so that you can grow your business, just things like that. I'll be out and about. You can find me on Facebook, Emily Trevino. You can add me on Facebook. But you usually see me in group chats and things like that. You can DM me if you have any questions related to this. But again, I'm not an estate planner, so I'm not going to be able to advise you on that. But as an insurance agency that's gone through this, I can give you a little bit of advice. So that's what's
Fantastic.
next.
Well, thank you again for coming, guys, or thank you again. And then thank you guys for tuning in. This has been another fantastic Tuesday training. Remember, we're here every Tuesday, 9 a.m., right? I'm bringing on some stellar guests, right? We've had Galen Hendricks in the past. We've had Brad Hannon. We have Emily Trevino today. We're going to have Sandra Gebhardt on the show next week.
Woo-hoo.
Pretty sure she's probably going to talk to you about something social media, what we can do to grow our social media presence. So get excited for that one. And as always, thank you all for tuning in. We'll see y'all next week for Tuesday training. Have a great day.